Davey's back. Welcome and
I'm
Happy
back,
New Year.
man. Back
All
with a
right.
bang. How you going, Rob?
This is exciting. I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. It's the
Great, good.
first of a new
Yeah.
year. Hoping
Happy
my,
New
my
Year.
pinball collection prices work out a little better
Yeah,
this year.
yeah, yeah. I don't think they will.
Hey, man.
The
I
UK
love
is
my
anything to go
games.
by.
Well, most of them.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
it's all
Just
good.
hang on to them,
Well, hey,
man.
man,
You won't have a problem.
you were out last episode. We had Don from Don's Pinball Podcast on the show, which was
You
awesome.
did a very good job. Very good job. I watched the show and I was very impressed. A little bit jealous not to be here. You did an amazing job of the mod showdown. Some
It
great
was a
work on
good
the
time.
graphics. I was very impressed.
Hey, man, I'm here to impress you. Making it
Yeah,
happen every
good,
day.
good. Yeah,
Well, guys, we
yeah.
are back. This is episode 5 of In Before the Lock. We're having a good time talking about the mod scene. We've got a pretty packed show today for you guys. So we're excited to have you. First of all, we've got Escher Lefkoff on the show. He's going to be joining us shortly. Escher is actually currently the number one ranking player in the world in IFPA, which is the competitive organization of pinball. So it's going to be great to have him on the show. He'll be here in about 10 minutes. I'm curious, Davey, to hear kind of what you think about how things went down with the Mod Bracket Showdown, because I know you were in the competition. So
Yeah, well, I
looking
was
forward
for
to
a little
that.
while. I was for a little
A
while.
little while. Well, we
Yeah,
tried to keep you in, but it is
yeah,
what it is.
yeah,
We're
yeah.
going to be talking about Jaws, which apparently is coming this week, right? Is that the rumor on the street?
Yeah, I saw it. Well, as much as anybody really knows these things, yeah, I saw
Yeah.
winds on Pinside that was going to be the case. Yeah, so yeah, exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it always, the news is kind of coming out, and it seems like there's a pretty good chance it's coming soon. I'm excited about that one. And then we're going to talk a little bit about 2024. We're both in this scene, building things. We want to talk to you guys about some of the things that we're trying to accomplish this year, and also just like what we'd like to see more from the mod space. So Escher's going to be joining us soon, but starting off. We did this cool thing last week or 2 weeks ago with Don from Don's Pinball Podcast, where we took all the mods that are part of the Twippies. We took out all the side art and the shooter rods because we just felt like, not to say anything against those guys, but I didn't think any of them were going to win, and we needed to get it down to something manageable. And it happened to actually work out to be exactly 64. And we kind
Mm.
of ran through that and kind of picked our own. You guys can watch it. It's in episode 4. Davey, you were watching it from the beach, maybe? I don't know. What'd you think?
Yeah, it wasn't the beach, man. It was the snow. But
Oh, okay,
I
okay.
did,
Well,
yeah, yeah. In between my après skiing and my wheat beers and my glue vine and my Christmas markets, I caught the show. And yeah, it was good, man. It was really good. It was interesting. It was an interesting way of looking at all the mods in the Twibbies. I thought it was really good to get a little bit of a summary of mods that potentially people hadn't seen before, and to get a bit of a
mhm.
background on them. But yeah, the biggest interesting point that I picked up when I was watching was how many game-changing mods made it through to the last couple, the quarterfinals and the semis that you guys did. Now, game-changing mods, we sometimes talk about mods sort of falling into 3 categories. The first being sort of static. You might, a 3D printed car or something that just gets put on the playfield somewhere that sort of represents a theme. Interactive mods that actually do something in response to a game event, like a switch getting hit or a lamp getting turned on. And then there's these other ones, which are game-changing mods, ones that actually physically change a ball path, or the way that the game is played. So yeah, there were 2 big mods, big game-changing mods that made it all the way through to the semi-finals. One of them being the Jerry Ramp, which narrowly pipped the noodle bar at the post, which I was very,
That did happen. That did
which
happen.
I was very fine with. I was totally cool with it. Uh, wasn't thinking about quitting the show at all in response to that move by Uber. Um,
Man, that's harsh.
Yeah. So the Jerry ramp, for those that didn't catch the show last week, is a 3D printed ramp that replaces a stand-up target, or I think a stand-up target, the Jerry target, on the left-hand side of Rick and Morty, and it opens up a left section that is previously sort of unshootable outside of these targets, and opens up a through ramp for the ball to go, to enable you to hit the garage shot on that game a lot easier. The garage shot on Rick and Morty is renowned as a very difficult shot. There it is there. And you can see that by shooting that ramp, it goes up the side of the game and into the garage shot. Now, these game-changing mods are, really interesting. They, but they're also quite controversial, because they're altering what the original intent of the designer was. So I thought it was really interesting that not only did you guys, choose these to sort of go right to the end, but it'll also be really interesting to see whether these have a lot of traction, during the Twippies. If these type of mods, make it through to the last three, or score really highly on the votes, maybe we'll see some more of them in years to come.
Yeah, that one, and then also the scuba kick, which we've covered a few times for Bond, and partly it's because I have it, and we're talking about some of the stuff we have. A lot of it has to do with, I think, just like whether it really adds value based on the situation, for the player, and that's obviously opinionated. I've been a part of some conversations recently on the Bond thread about, pretty much everyone's kind of decided if they want it or not, at least as far as like the pin side conversation goes. And the people who don't want it have been really tired of hearing about it because it's like, look, I don't want it. You're not going to convince me otherwise.
And what's their motivation for saying that?
Well, I mean, part of the issue for at least the one on the Bond was that like there's a situation where it kicks out of that and goes straight down the middle. And frankly, if you're a good player, you're going to be able to prevent that pretty much all the time. So for a lot of people that either don't want to spend the money or don't want to alter the game, they're just like, get better, which is totally fair, right? Like you can deal with this issue by becoming a better player. For me, in a collection of 4 or 5, versus like someone with 1, like, when I play the game, I want to get through the modes and all that type of stuff. So I like it because it just kind of like increases the flow. So I think, fairly enough, people are like, look, guys, like if you want to talk about this, like there's a thread for this mod, like go talk about it there, which is probably fair. I haven't been a part of the Jerry mod conversation, but I don't know if that one's controversial or not. But
I think they all are for the same reasons, but there hasn't been. I think I haven't noticed any pushback within the thread itself. I think probably the people who sort of don't approve of these type of mods, don't just sit there trolling the entire thread saying how bad it is. They just don't participate. And it's been a successful mod. He sold a bunch of them. So there must be an audience for these types of things. And it'd be real. I don't know whether Scott, in the case of Rick and Morty, is piped up to say sort of what he, this is Scott Denisi, who's the designer of Rick and Morty, what his opinion is of these types of things. I'm sure Scott's very pragmatic and diplomatic when it comes to these types of things. I'm sure he'd, be in support of anybody who's, being creative and stuff because he's a nice guy. But yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It'd be great to talk to the designers to see sort of what they think of these things and whether, in the case of Rick and Morty, Scott only had a limited amount of time for the design, and potentially this was an area that, in retrospect, he thought he could be improved by something like this. It'd be really interesting to see what their take on it was.
Yeah, It's also on the Bond side. It's interesting because the game's not finished. Like they literally haven't added the final wizard mode. They haven't added functionality for a bunch of the inserts, and it could end up biting owners like myself in the ass, so to speak, because like we could end up not wanting it for whatever reason. I have been playing visually. I think it contributes a lot with and then with like Rick and Morty. The game's pretty much done. And that game arguably isn't very flowy, and it adds some flow to it. So, So, any other key observations on the showdown?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but Atomic Godzilla wasn't in.
No, so there were a few that weren't in there. The laser mod that I know you contributed on for Bond wasn't in there as well. There's been a lot of talk about the database for the Twippies, especially as it applies to the media category, and it's really just about like what's in the database. So look, no one else would fit. We had 64, so
I thought that might have been the case. You just got the 64. But look, totally cool. I actually think that Atomic Godzilla stands a very good chance of taking it out this year. It won the Canada Facebook thing, the poll that he set up. And I think Scuba Kick was doing really well in that same vote. I mean, it was Canada's first time doing it. Time will tell to see whether he can be bothered doing it again. The reality of these kind of things is that it's an absolute ton of work to do these things, to get it set up, to make sure that the rollout is smooth, to make sure everyone's included that needs to be included. I mean, we've seen this year how difficult it is to get right, and how it's a thankless job. Nobody's going to be happy with the work that you do with it. And no matter which side of the fence you're on, I don't think it's been a smooth thing at all. So whether Canada takes up the mantle next year and attempts to do it, I think that there was some kind of hacking attempt with the polls on his Facebook for whatever reason. I don't know what was behind that, but I just saw some of the comments that he made. I think it was shut down early for one reason or another. I think people were stuffing the ballots or something like that. And additionally, a whole bunch of people were left off the mod category until a couple of days and then starts. So, it is what it is. But, I think that just sort of speaks of how difficult it actually is to do these things properly.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. It's cool that people are getting recognition on this stuff. There's a ton of mods. There always will be, and we want more mods. So it's always going to be a tough category to tackle. But so, guys, we're gonna move on. Like I said, we've got Escher Lefkoff on the show today. He's standing by. I think he's in a pretty special place. We've only got him for about 20 minutes. He's got a major tournament coming up, and we're excited to hear from him. So, Escher, welcome to the show.
How's it going?
Good, man. You sound great.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm hoping the audio is all right. I'm in a funny place right now, but should work.
Yeah, let's hear about that before we dive in. It sounds like your vacation continues.
Yeah. So before Indisc, I'm actually on vacation to Florida to go to Universal and Disneyland. So I'm here at Epcot in the parking lot.
Oh,
you can see the big sphere in the background, but I just found a nice tree area to sit around at and talk for a little bit.
Awesome. Great to have you. So for anybody that doesn't know, IFPA is the International I'm already messing up. IPFA, International Pinball Flipper Association. Is that right?
IFPA. It's the International Flipper Pinball Association. It's a funny name. But it was
the flipper throws me off every time. Yeah. But this is the the ranking body for competitive pinball. And Escher, you are currently ranking number 1, if I'm correct.
I am. I haven't checked since yesterday because a lot has changed. But as of yesterday, I was still ranked number 1 in the world. Nice.
And I know you've got a really big tournament. You mentioned Indisc. That's like one of the bigger tournaments of the year, at least here in North America.
Yeah, I would probably say it's the second biggest tournament of the year by actual amount of people. It's definitely the biggest. I still think the Invitational for IFPA which is only 96 players, but I just feel it's a little bit. It feels bigger than this one still, but even still, it's a huge tournament. There's hundreds of people competing, and yeah, a lot of games to be played there.
Nice. And you've been playing for a long time, right? I mean, I've read about some of your background. Your whole life. So
yeah.
What was the first like really big tournament that you won?
Well, the very first tournament I ever went to is I played in the toddlers division at Expo when I was 4, and I got second. But my first, I guess, major win wasn't actually a win. It was third place at Northwest Pinball Championships. I was 11, and it's also where the screenshot of my IFPA photo comes from, with me holding a stack of money.
I'm gonna pull that up because I want to know what the story with that. Like, did you actually win this money? You guys got to see
so
this.
I got third, and back in the day they used to pay in $1 bills. Yep, that's the picture. I think I was 11, maybe I was 10, somewhere around there. But I lost to let's see, I want to say Zach Sharp won that year, and Robert Gagnon was second, and I was third.
Oh, so that was actually, you were competing with the adults in that case.
Yeah, that was the adults tournament. That was the main, and that was my first, I guess, big performance. And ever since then, I've been kind of top 4ing a lot of circuit events, Papa circuit. Now it's the Stern Pro circuit. And then my first, I guess, major win was when I was 13, when I won the World Championships.
Wow. So, how was it like being around all these adults and now being an adult? And then you've got like Sterling, who's also amazing player. And I think he's probably like 12 or 13. Like, what's it like being around, someone who was your age when you were good? And what have you said to him?
Yeah, it's pretty funny now that there's all these kid players and I'm like the old one, Jason Zoller's younger than me. Zach McCarthy's younger than me. Jared August is the same age as me. And a lot, the two kids I always talk about are brothers, Liam and Miles Bradley from South Carolina. They are incredible. Miles, who is 10 years old, won the B division at Expo this year. And when I say win, like, he won it. It wasn't close. He played exceptional in all his games, and he's 10.
Wow.
I didn't even make it to the final 16 of B division until I was even 11 or 12. And then his brother, who's 2 years older, is actually better than him. And he has just been dominating kids divisions, and even made the Indisc Classics finals last year.
I know your dad. I know your dad's been a part of the pinball space for a long time. Is that what's going on with these kids too, or are you finding that like kids are kind of finding other reasons to get into pinball?
Yeah, so that's why Liam and Miles are kind of this anomaly. Is that their parents play, but not that competitively. They're not practicing. They kind of play as a casual, but they have taken it to the next level. But versus, like, you look at Jason Zoller, who's ranked second in the world. His dad's been playing for 30 years. Or you look at, Zach McCarthy. His dad was one of the best Colorado players. He's been playing for a very long time, owns a pinball arcade. And, and me, like, right when I was born, my dad started competing in tournaments and going to a lot of events. So, but even still, there's people like Jared August, who just had a couple of games at home and just studied videos from 2012, and then got a top 4 in Expo and surprised everyone, and then started winning everything.
Makes us old guys jealous. We're constantly trying to get better, but I think we're going the wrong direction once we hit a certain point.
Well, you guys still got Keith Elwin. That's the funny thing is, a lot of people, especially on the collector side, know Keith Elwin as the GOAT designer, but the reason he's called the GOAT is because he's won more world championships and majors than anyone else, and it's not even close. He's won over 10 majors. He won 3 world championships in a row. Pinburg, the 1,000-player tournament, he won 5 out of 9 of them.
Wow.
So he won more than half of them.
And that was all before he was a designer, right?
And he wasn't even a designer yet. And then he made
Yep.
Archer, which turned into Iron Maiden, and now he's the GOAT designer. And Jaws is just around the corner, I think. I would keep being told it's Jaws. I don't know anything.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little bit about that later on the show. I know I'm excited for it. And I also, getting back to Elwin, I know you own a majority of his games, right?
Yeah,
or maybe
I
all
own
of them.
all of them except for Bond 60th for obvious reasons. And yeah, and those are, I love them to death. I got all four.
And I know Elwin games are hugely popular among most competitors. A lot of it is because of like a lack of exploits that occur in that, and just the ability to get really deep. What's just kind of a softball question, but what's a game outside of an Elwin that you'd love to see in competition?
Any Lyman Stern game. All of them are. Lyman, being an incredible competitor, knew what people that play competitively want to see in games. So like Walking Dead's one of my favorite games ever. It's in my top 5.
Okay.
Not the premium, just the pro. I can split down the middle. But and I find myself playing my Metallica and Walking Dead more than a lot of my other modern Sterns, just because of how deep the rules are, how complicated they are, and everything else that comes with those games.
Nice. And we kind of talked in the pre-show a little bit about like the games that are in competition. So there's a lot that goes into like what's in the competition and what's not. And I know like Jersey Jacks, you're not going to see a lot in competition, I think. Why is that?
Well,
why?
So Dialed In, I think, is the only one that's currently viable. Okay. Mostly because Wizard of Oz is more than anything just kind of a boring tournament game. People just play the regular multi-ball over and over again. They just play the ball multi-ball. Like, it isn't super deep. There's no... All the nuances to the game are so complicated that only like 1 or 2 people know about them, like the Rainbow Horses. And then there's games like Hobbit and, Godfather or Guns N' Roses, which just play for so long that, if you want to keep a tournament running at a reasonable time, you just can't put them in. But Dialed In is that balance of in between where the rules are simple enough that majority of people know them, but at the same time can be set up difficult. And so you see it in tournaments. So like even just last year at Northwest, and there was a Dialed In Maine, and I think the highest score on it was only like 2 to 3 million. So
yeah, I think one thing that I didn't necessarily realize until I started looking at competition is just like truly how good you guys are at these games. And that really kind of came into full spectrum for me on your last stream on Twitch. So can you just kind of tell us like what you challenged yourself to do and what ended up happening with that?
Yeah, so it all started with this thread on the pinball competitive forums, which are called Tilt forums. And Kaylee George, another top player, said he had been going for this goal of getting 10 billion on his shadow that's set up as hard as you can make it. And he finally did it. And he asked people like, oh, what is your goal that you've always wanted to do, but you've never quite gotten there? And I just chipped in with 3 things that I had done, and I didn't realize I didn't have any other ones. So I started thinking about it. And the one I could do at home was I could beat all 4 Keith Elwin games back to back to back to back, meaning defeat Thanos, escape Nublar, get Run to the Hills, and I forget what the last one on Godzilla is called, but when the game ends, like end the game.
King of the Monsters, I think.
King of the Monsters, yeah. And if I did it all back to back to back to back, that would be a fun, Twitch challenge. And I was hoping to play it for a couple of weeks or like, a month, like some, as a cool challenge, but I ended up beating it on my first try. And Iron Maiden was my game.
Davey, did you just hear that? Did you see this stream? Like, I'm just
hating myself right now, dude.
he comes on
somebody who's never been to King of the Monsters.
Exactly.
I never even got that.
So he starts off on Iron Maiden, and I think you basically didn't do it in your first couple, and then you did.
Yeah, my first 2 games, I was still a little cold. I had to warm up on the shots. So those were like...
Oh, that's rubbish then, in that case.
Yeah. No, but then after that, he literally... I think he did like a 1-ball warm-up on each game, which is fair, right? And then he literally...
like 30 seconds, which is... in some tournaments, they do that. Like the World Championships, they give you a 30-second warm up between
Gotcha.
before every game, just to make sure
Yeah.
everything's working.
And that maximizes the competition because you want players to play well. But anyway, yeah. So look. So again, these are the 4 Elwins. A majority of the people who are watching this stream probably have owned one of those. He beat them all, and on a stream. I mean, like that's incredible to do that. And also, you were like constantly responding to comments the entire time. Very distracted. This is not a focused game, but clearly it was.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So, so this being a mod show, I'm curious, like, are there any mods that you're ever seeing out in competition? Do you hate seeing them? Do you love seeing any? Like, what's the deal with mods in competitions that you've seen?
The biggest one, I got to say at the start, I just hate the shooter rods, man. Just, like, yeah, swap the spring or make them look nice. But like,
so you don't like that Elvira like factory stern gnarly thing going on there?
Give me the regular.
Gotta agree with you there, Asha. Yeah.
Like, especially on games that have a skill shot, right? Like, I hate walking up to a Godzilla. It's got like a giant Godzilla head as the shooter rod, and I'm trying to short plunge on it. That's like, oh my god, like I can't get my hand around this thing. But I mean, besides that. Most mods are fine. I like a lot of mods that I've seen, like on Godzilla. The main mod that I've seen the most, I think, is the thing that you screw into the top of the building on the premium that kicks the ball to a flipper rather than straight down the middle. Or the sign mod on the right.
I've never heard of it. Davey actually did that one, if you didn't know that.
Oh, really?
That's one of mine, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I see that one.
Well, don't say anything bad about it. Yeah.
I'm trying to.
How about I know like for Rush, there's like a fix for the loop, and then there's one for Bond too, which I did that one. I was curious if you come across those and like.
Bond?
Yeah, same kind of deal as Rush.
For Rush, I was actually a play tester for Stern. They sent me one, and they sent me like beta code, and I would play it and let them know if I could find anything. So I made a couple changes to the rules in that game, but there wasn't a fix on mine, and it was really bad. It was about like 1 in 10 would register. So my fix is I got the little fabric that you put. Sticky fabric you put on the bottom of like wood stools so they don't scratch the floor. I put 6 of them on my loop, and it slowed the ball down just enough that it would register.
Nice.
And they didn't have a Cliffy yet, so about halfway through my game I would turn on the the coin door ball save, and I would get a hammer out and just hammer the Cliffy back into position. I was playing.
Man. Got to make it happen. Yeah, it's funny with guys setting up machines to be harder. I've seen that, just like, tweaking things. So I guess in some cases you want those things to be a little bit tougher just to kind of get you ready for competition.
Yeah. So like at home, I set up all my games at, I make them really steep, all the back legs all the way up, front legs all the way down. Make games somewhat tilty. If they're set easy, I don't make them like egregiously tilty. The one mod that everyone can do that people need to start doing is earplugs on the tilt pop. Do you know about that?
No.
So if you get a normal earplug, you can buy like a box of them for like $5. And you cut them down. Ones. Yeah, the foam ones. You cut them down long ways, roll them up, and then you fold it in half and stick it into the ring where the tilt pop like hangs from. The foam expands, so then after you make a move, the tilt pop settles instantly.
Interesting. Okay.
So it makes the game a little less.
You're gonna have to get a video demo of that.
Yeah, I like that.
I could definitely find you a video.
Is that important whenever like going from player to player more so? Or?
Yeah, so you'll see in tournaments all the time after someone tilts, they'll wait like their full minute before stepping up, waiting for it to settle. But if they use the earplugs, it settles instantly. But the only, I would say, like negative side effect is it's really hard to set up a game so it tilts in one motion. The biggest you can do is usually 2 dangers, which honestly I think is fine. But yeah, it's just like, I guess that's like one of the only competitive pinball mods that you can find on.
Yeah, Esha, do you change your flipper rubbers to make them less bouncy?
I'm gonna just go ahead and say it. don't ever take your factory stern rubbers off. They play great. And when they get dirty or cracked, you flip them around and you get another more use out of them. And if you take your Bally Williams Reds off, please send them to me. I'll give you my address. They play.
The only reason I asked
perfectly.
is
do not put super bands on your game.
No, because the only reason I asked that is because there's a guy here in the UK, Neil McRae, who runs all of our comps over here, who you probably know.
Yeah, I was at the UK Open this year.
Okay, yep. So I'm not, as we talked about in the pre-meeting before the show. I'm not really involved that much in the competition scene over here, but somebody was telling me that he, during the process of him setting up all the games up as hard as he can possibly make them, moving the outlane posts so they're in the most competitive spot, he does change the flipper rubbers to make them less bouncy, to make live catching and dead bouncing a lot harder. Or no, does he make them extra bouncy?
Usually, in most tournaments, they do the opposite. They put on these, I can't remember the name. I think they're like Saturn Reds or something. But that's Josh Sharp's favorite rubbers, so he uses those in the World Championships. And they are so insanely bouncy that you can't really dead bounce anything because it goes into the sling.
Yeah, gotcha.
Doing stuff like live catching and drop catching is very difficult. So, the only thing that I'm kind of against in tournaments are super bands. Titans are okay. I think they're a better tournament. Like super bands, don't get me wrong, they look great and they last forever. As someone that's worked at an arcade for a while, I never have to switch super bands. But they put crazy backspin on the ball and allows you to just hold the flipper up to catch the ball whenever you want. They make the game very easy, but while also making some annoying rolls that you wouldn't see with any other rubbers.
Now, Isha, can I ask you, when you're playing a game and you can't see the logo on the flipper rubbers, can you tell what brand they are just by the feel?
Yeah, instantly.
Wow.
I can usually tell by just looking at them. Super bands and Titans are really easy to see because they're a little bit shiny or clear, even after they're old. If they're red, just like regular red, they're not shiny, then it's safe to say that it's either an original or something close that's trying to be an original. And if it's a black on a stern, then it will be factory. So
flipper historian on our hands. I love it.
You get used to it after a while.
So I know you've got a ride to catch here. What are you going to ride?
So we were actually here at Epcot 2 days ago. We tried to get on the Guardians of the Galaxy ride, but it was instantly booked out. So we went back home and booked for 2 more days in advance, and we finally got one spot. So going to do that now. So.
Well, we hope you enjoy it. So I know InDisc is coming up January 4th to 7th, and there's going to be some live streams, and I know that's a pretty big one because it's featured on Twitch. Is that start on Thursday, the 4th?
Yeah. So the first tournament you'll see is the Classics Match Play. That will be on Thursday. I'm not going to be playing in that because I qualify on Thursday, but you'll see a lot of other top players, and it'll be a super fun tournament to watch. And then there shouldn't be a stream on Friday because it's just qualifying. And then Saturday morning will be women's finals. And then Saturday afternoon will be classics finals. And then on Sunday is main finals. And after main finals will be high stakes finals. And, high stakes is a super fun tournament because first place is $15,000. So people, take it very seriously. But
wow, 15 grand. That's a lot of ones. I want to see that. Well, good luck, man. We hope you do well. It's exciting to see you. And I know you're off to school in Australia this year, so you're gonna keep playing, or
So I'll be probably taking part in the Australia scene. It's not 100% locked in. I still have to get into the school and whatnot, but I have my citizenship, so I'm most likely going to be moving to Australia pretty soon.
Nice.
What school are you looking to go to?
I'm at QUT, Queensland Tech, and I'm going for video production and editing.
Nice.
Awesome.
Well, I hope you enjoy it.
We'll look forward to seeing you in 2024. Thank you so much for being here.
No
good luck and enjoy that ride.
I will. Have a good
All
day.
right. See you, Asher.
See you, Asher. Bye.
Bye.
Wow. So he knows your mod.
He does. He does. But I'd still feel really terrible about myself because I've never reached King of Monsters, and he just did it.
Seriously.
Four on the trot.
I've been
just
like,
four on the trot. You know.
I've been, after watching that, but I mean, that's the cool thing too. Is like when you watch that, you start to realize like it's possible to keep that thing under control like nobody's business. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
I mean, when you see these top players in action, you realize how much further you've got to go before you can be considered a good player. But I just find it incredible, isn't it? Because pinball is a game of luck. There's a lot that particularly when I play, it certainly feels like a game of luck. The amount of times the ball goes down the out lanes, and I'm playing the game, but then then these players come along and they just destroy it time and time again. So there's just an incredible amount of skill and anticipation in what they do, and it's for players the age of Asher and then the younger kids that he was talking about, it's just unbelievable what they're able to achieve.
Totally. All right. Well, we're never going to be at that level, but definitely check him out. Again, that's INDISC. I think it stands for It Never Drains in Southern California, which I love that.
Got the acronym right that time, though.
Yes, I did. Flippers. So there's been news of Jaws coming, which is super exciting. I mean, I feel like, from my experience, whenever you start to see this stuff pop up, over and over, like it's probably is coming. We know that Elwyn has been earmarked for this one for a while, and it seems like that's probably going to happen. I mean, this is going to be a big game. People are chomping at the bit.
Big game, man. I mean, when you think about sort of the recent releases that have come out, a couple of Barnstormers, Labyrinth, Barrels of Fun has come out of nowhere. So we've got a new pinball company. JJP have released arguably their best game, at least in my opinion. Stern probably didn't have that great sales from Venom. A lot's riding on this one, and they've got, as we were saying before, they got the greatest designer of all time, waiting in the wings, ready to drop something massive. They got a lot riding on it, but with a massive license like Jaws and their best designer, it's going to be really interesting to see how that changes the current pinball market dynamic.
So one thing I'm excited about, so we got Elwyn, coming with his first game in a pretty long time. I think Bond 60th aside, was it Godzilla? Was his last game?
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane, right? Like in the grand scheme of like feeling like these things are coming hot and heavy, every couple of months, obviously from different companies. So I'm really curious to see what happens with like what they did with Venom, which arguably wasn't done particularly well or yet to be seen. But the XP system, like, can you imagine like an XP system combined with Elwyn and like his reputation? He's got to withhold it. Stern's got to withhold that reputation to make it great, but it could be amazing. Like, I think there's so much potential in that feature. Personally, I like it a lot. So that's one thing I'm excited to see if there's any element of an XP system.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see whether they double down on that. I have read a lot of positives and negatives in regards to it. I think the people, there's certainly a really strong community of Venom owners there who are still really, really enjoying the game. I feel like it could be a bit of a sleeper hit, much in the same lines that Stranger Things was. Initially, not really, didn't really drop in the way that, you would expect a big game to, but then in retrospect, it was and has been more, it's grown in popularity over the last couple of years to the point where it's then been re-released. Sometimes you get the feeling, within these owners groups that people are sort of trying to pump up how good it is because they want to feel a bit more comfortable with their purchases. I don't get that impression in the Venom threads. I think it's a good game, and I think it will probably stand the test of time in terms of how popular it is, later on when people do actually get a chance to play it and enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean the way they've done it. If you guys haven't got a chance to play it, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I really like about it is like the XP system is really just like about unlocking a specific mode a little bit more on your time and your decision to actually activate it, which adds a lot of depth to a game that you own. And also, I know like so you basically earn Venomized Hulk at some point, and that's like incredibly powerful. It can be turned off for tournament play or competitive play, so it's not like there's this like issue with how it works competitively. So I think it's really cool, and I can't see any reason why they wouldn't continue to invest in doing that in games.
Yeah, I mean certainly in a home environment, and
Yep.
for players like us, that aren't of the quality of these tournament players, having the ability to see more of the game over the course of time is really appealing. But on the flip side to that, it's very unpinball, in terms of part of the allure, I suppose, of pinball is being able to walk up to the game and start from the same point every time. And it's very obvious then how well you've done on that day, because you know what your top score is on your favorite game, and if you beat it, that's a hell of a rush. So for the game to be set up differently depending on how far you've got as part of this experience system, it does lose that in a way, because you will have aspects of your profile, your experience that will enable you to get further, to score higher, and those those point systems aren't as meaningful, I suppose. So
that's a good point.
It's that trade-off, isn't it? It's that trade-off.
Yeah, I mean it's like it's almost like for most people, it's about their high score in their room, but even their high score in their game room has an asterisk because, like, I did it with, Venomized Hulk or whatever, and it's like if I wouldn't have had that lined up. But anyway, we're getting really off topic here. Mods, Jaws, mods.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks,
no, it's my fault. For you, like, I've been thinking about this a little bit for Jaws because obviously there's a world where we do a topper for Jaws, but like.
Yeah.
What's going on in your head right now in terms of like how to tackle this beast? Obviously you need to see it, but then what happens?
Yeah. Look, I'm a little bit scared in a way, I suppose, because look, it's going to be a huge release, I feel. Elwyn hasn't sort of been around for ages. Nobody really got access to Bond's 60th because it was just priced out of everyone's bracket. Although, reports on it were great, etc. We'd all love to play it, but we didn't get to. So, there's a whole bunch of us out there who are just massive Elwyn fans. We love everything he does. We think his game's the most ones available. So, essentially, if it's a good game, and it, most definitely will be, I'll be in on it regardless. So, because I'll want to be part of that, excitement and ecosystem. And, I know I love his games. I'll more than likely get it. But in terms of it being a game that will be conducive to modding, I'm not 100% convinced that at least it will be conducive to my style of modding. And I think that, if all the modders have got, skills in different areas and are better at producing different things, for me, my skill lies in working with LEDs, doing light shows, that kind of thing. Now, for Jaws, which is quite a moody, realistic title that is built a lot on atmosphere, I'm not really feeling that like some kind of neon addition to the boat is really going to work. So, I'll need to look at it to really sort of get a feel for that, and whether I decide to do something completely off-piste in terms of this one, or whether I just, leave it up to others that might be better suited to this game. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I hear your point there. I think like, obviously I would assume that like resin, hand painted stuff is going to fit really well there. And that's like not something that you're doing. But, what's interesting about it is like, it all depends on what this art package looks like. So we don't know what the art package is going to look like. We'd have to assume that it's not going to be comic book style. I think people would be pretty upset by that. And I think that personally, just like off the cuff, seems like it's a mistake. So that means is Elwyn not matching up with Zombie Yeti, for the first time, I believe, in his career. Who's it going to be? What's it going to look like? And of course, the mods are going to need to follow suit.
I mean, we had a little bit of a discussion about this prior to the show, and my feeling is Franchi would be absolutely perfect for this. Now, unfortunately, he's not going to get picked up by Stern. I think they don't have a strong business relationship anymore, but he would be perfect for something like this. His style.
Yeah, I mean, what he did on the last one with American.
He did Elton, didn't he? And he did American.
Yeah.
So he did Galactic Tank Battle. And he's just got a really, really, the way he sort of does realism, but with I guess a comic edge to it. Like it's obviously drawn. It's obviously artistic, but there's a real realism to it. Would be absolutely perfect for this, unfortunately. So it's not going to be him. We mentioned that there's probably another couple of artists on Stern's roster who would probably be better suited than Yeti would be for this. Whether Zombie Yeti, you said it was Jeremy. Did you say his name was Jeremy?
Jeremy Packer is his real name.
Jeremy Packer. Whether he could potentially go in a different direction artistically for this particular game, and so then therefore still be used to do the art. Don't know. But then there's other artists such as, and I've still got them here. So
yeah, I think you were mentioning the Stranger Things, right?
Stranger Things. So a guy called Bob Stevlik did the art for that one, and this is probably showing our lack of knowledge around the artists within pinball. I'm not sure whether that artwork was hand drawn specifically for Stranger Things, or whether it was sort of like a Photoshop composite thing. Either way, the art for Stranger Things is really good, particularly the back glass. So to me, that seems like an obvious choice for this one, unless they get a brand new artist in specifically for this, which would be risky, wouldn't it? An untried artist for one of their cornerstone games with their highest selling designer. It would make more sense to use somebody that they've used before, who's got an understanding of what goes into putting a pinball playfield together. There's a very specific set of skills in order to convey information on a playfield. So it'll be really interesting. And I think that will sort of dictate, I guess, what the approach to modding will be as well. I know that we always try, like your Lebowski topper did recently, you try and hew as closely to the design aesthetic that the artist originally put forward in the game. For obvious reasons. You want it to match in, you want it to look like it's part of it to begin with.
I'm really curious. Really curious what they end up doing with the art, and specifically the back glass, because you've got this iconic poster with the shark. They're obviously not, well, I wouldn't think they're going to do that on any one of them.
I reckon that would be,
because
I think it'd be a mistake, but it wouldn't be the first time that they'd done that, is it? Like, look at Bond. I mean, it was just reusing a lot of the existing art, wasn't it? Correct.
Yeah, but you can't put that on all the versions, so I think they'll probably shy away from that. So I'm curious to see what they come up with. I mean, this is going to be a tall order to execute, because it is, I think, going to need to be photorealistic. A lot of scenes to deal with. I'm sure it's going to be beautiful. It's good. There's going to be a lot of lights in it, Davey. Like there's going to be lights.
There's always lights. There's always lights in pinball machines.
You might not. You got to find your perfect spot. There's going to be a lot of stuff missing. Visually from that. So that'll be fun.
I'm happy to go in a different direction too. We don't have to keep doing the same thing every time, do we? And look, probably the first person I'll be speaking to is Paul Jasbush, who did Atomic Godzilla. He's got a couple of really great 3D artists on his roster. He's a toy designer by trade, so he's got a lot of amazing 3D artists on his roster that can do some incredible work around this. And look, if there's a 2D plastic shark on the Pro, then you can bet that there's going to be a lot of modders, clamoring to redo that shark in all manner of different varieties and ways. So,
well, if we look at
who does the best shark,
if we look at Bond, it's probably going to have a central component, kind of like the rocket, and you're going to have 4 or 5 guys redoing that in different capacities. So we're going to see a lot of options. I mean, this thing's going to be hot. A lot of people are just going to buy it, just because it's Elwyn. So it'll be fun to see. And I know, you had talked a little bit about, especially in the mod space, like, how do you guys kind of go about not stepping on each other's toes? Like, do you think you'll be letting some key people know, like, hey, I'm pursuing this, or what's going to go down with that?
Yeah, we definitely do as much as possible. I mean, obviously, you're more in communication with certain people than others. Your friends, essentially.
Right.
And look, I'm not going to go all in on Jaws if I really feel like it's not my lane. There's going to be some other people who would, if it is photorealistic, if it is moody, if the lighting is sort of muted and things like that, then it's going to be a lot more conducive to people who are, like Lior, for instance, who is really great at doing amazing resin sculpts, beautifully painted, and it's going to be a lot more conducive to that kind of style of modding. And if that's the case and people are releasing some brilliant stuff, I'll probably just leave them to it, and probably contribute in other ways, whether it's in a supporting role, if people need sort of lighting amendments to stuff that they're doing. As we know, I've been working with the TPMF guys who are doing that Gapper mod for Elvira, and they needed some, lighting rigs to light that up. So I just might play more of a supporting role in this one. But I guess time will tell. We'll just see. And usually what tends to happen is, particularly with a release like Jaws, everybody just goes into the hype thread, and the modders just start posting like screenshots of things that they're working on in an attempt to sort of corral chunk of the playfield to sort of ring fence it and say that's
laying their claim, on that territory.
It does happen like that. And look, for the most part, we're all friends and we're all good guys, and if people are doing amazing stuff, I'm not going to say that they did me one over by choosing an area of the playfield that I'd attempted to ring fence with like a screen grab of Fusion 360 or whatever. I'm more than happy if somebody does something incredible, and I'm just stoked for them that they've pushed the bar higher, and we're all just making incredible things that we're all enjoying and getting a kick out of.
Yeah. Well, if things play out the way we think they are, we're going to be talking about Jaws quite a bit more on the next episode.
Can I ask you one more Jaws question?
Yeah.
Rob?
Yeah.
Have you got any ideas for topper ideas for Jaws?
I do. I mean, I really want to do one for it. I mean, this game is going to be awesome. I'd hate to. It's a little bit about like the FOMO of like owning the machine. It's like you want to be in the mod scene for that machine too. So I do have an idea, but it's all about kind of seeing kind of how things play out first, and then also just kind of playing within the boundaries of what you're comfortable doing with from an IP perspective too, which is always a big part of it. So I'm pumped, and I think it's coming. So we'll talk more about that hopefully on the next episode.
Hopefully it'll have been shown by the time that we talk next.
I think it will. I mean, it could be this week. So happy Tuesday to all of us, hopefully. So so January 1st, 2024, dude, these years are going by quick, man. I mean, like they keep coming hot and heavy.
Oh yeah.
Got a whole one ahead of us. Yeah, man. So we thought it'd be fun to just kind of talk a little bit about like what we've got going on and some of our goals for this year. And also like what we want to see out of the mod space. I think it continues to grow. It continues to the quality continues to go up. We've got game altering mods that are actually working. Arguably, we've got 17 different Godzillas. it's all happening, baby. So for me, and my business, Alec and I have been talking a lot about like what we want to do better this year. And one thing we want to do is just like, how do we get product into people's hands, just more quickly, right? So like for all of our products, it's been like, you put down a deposit, you've got to wait 3 months or 6 months. Like there's obviously very good reason for that, but we're wanting to figure out how to improve that and also continue to deliver, the stuff that, we've already got out there. So we've still got people that want Twilight Zones. We still got people that want Godzillas. We've got to build Lebowski's. We've got more products coming. So just kind of figuring out that flow, and also just like trying to figure out what people's expectations are and whatnot is a big goal for us. And I know you probably face a lot of that too, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things, man. Like, as a mod maker, I guess from the outside looking in, it just looks like a sort of a mad scientist sort of gig, right? Where, you're just coming up with these crazy toys and, chucking them in games and, getting all these orders and sending them out to people. But, that's probably like 10% of, what it actually means to be a mod maker. And, the very boring but very important side of it is the management of logistics and stock and timelines and critical paths and all this stuff that is incredibly tedious to sort of talk about, but incredibly difficult to get right. One of the hugest challenges I've had, over the last couple of years is just making sure that we've got enough stock for everything. If I run out of one type of screw, and we're in the UK, right? So it's a metric system over here, and yet all of the screws that I need are imperial. Now it's not easy to get imperial screws here. There's one supplier, and they've got like a 30-day lead on most of the screws that I need, right? So if if Danny, my assembly person, comes around and she's putting everything together, and suddenly we run out of this screw, then we're 30 days behind on getting orders out. We've been able to improve this in various ways, having proper stock management systems, actually having multiple mods running at any one time is good, because if we do run out of something, we can quickly flip to another one and start building those instead. But just keeping that momentum with everything and, making sure that we are continually sending out all these orders to people and not making mistakes, and making sure that, the ordering system's working and, sending out tracking emails to people so they know where their stuff is. It's all very boring stuff, but very important if you want to run a business and not get caught in the weeds. Because if people are emailing you all the time asking where their stuff is or asking where their tracking link is and stuff, then you'll spend your all day responding to emails like that and not actually getting any work done. So it's a very tricky thing to get right, I think, and you can see why a lot of people balk at actually doing it, because it's tough. It's not that easy.
Yeah, a lot of learning from your mistakes and scaling at the same time, and that creates added risk. But definitely, like, just making a better product is really multifaceted, and getting it to more people. So it sounds like we're both kind of dealing with the same challenges.
Yeah. But one of my other big goals, man, is I want a workshop like yours. That's what I want this year. I got workshop.
Hey, man. Yeah, like, my team is like, man, this, like, your organization is sometimes challenging because it's like you're so on top of it, but it's like, we've got 8 or 10 hours of work time in any given product. I mean, to do that right is so important. I mean, because a couple of mistakes can take that to 12 or 15 pretty quick. Yeah. I mean, especially when you're having to disassemble something that you made a mistake earlier on. So like, I'm a big stickler on the tools we use. I want to make sure, we're all using the same tools, because if something's not working, it's like, sometimes it's the tool, frankly. So it takes a lot of organization. So what's going on with the scene the next year that you want to see, continue or change? I know that's a little bit tougher of a question, but any thoughts there?
Yeah, it is. Look, I think the Twippies thing has really knocked everyone about this year. I'd love to see that settle down and get into a bit of a rhythm. And whether it's Twippies or whether it's something new entirely, I don't really care. But and I know that a lot of people on the threads were like, it doesn't have to always be positive. We can criticize, without getting called out for it or being cancelled and stuff. It's like, cool. Like, I hear that and I get it. But at the same time, I personally want to come from a very positive and supportive place. And, if something's not working, okay, that's cool. I recognize that. But let's try and work out a solution to it. Let's try and get things to a point where, whatever problems there are solved, so that we can celebrate, the scene and, everybody involved in it, and, and not fight and bicker and get caught up in the drama. So I know that's not specifically mod related, but we all got absorbed into this drama this year. Even when I sent out emails to people asking them to vote in the Twippies, I got a couple of emails, and they were nice emails, people being very supportive, but also putting across their opinion about, not wanting to be supportive of Twippy anymore and stuff. And so trying to meet in the middle without it being a conflict, was a very difficult email response to write. And I would love not to have to write those emails. I think, it would be so much better if we didn't get pulled into this, drama this year. And so I'd love all that to be resolved. I don't know how. It's not going to be me who resolves it, but wouldn't that be great if that got solved?
Yeah, it's been tough. I feel like we're kind of past it. I'm sure it'll pop its head up a little bit, once we get to TPF and the Twippies themselves. But probably a lot of good learning. We're all learning in this space. For me, and it might be a little bit of a fool's errand to dream this, but like just more openness and interoperability from the manufacturer for mods. Totally. Give us the data. Give us the data.
Mate, I would absolutely love that. Stern, if you're listening, and I'm sure you are listening, like, why would you not?
Of course.
So Stern, if you're listening, give us the data.
I mean, look, like you and I have both worked in a lot of different versions of this industry, as in technology, right? And like, there's nothing unique about this situation. Like, no industry is like real open with this stuff. No. But this is also like a different beast, in my opinion. Like, the reason that people get defensive about Venom or their Bond is because they're invested $10,000 into the thing, and they love it and they want it to be great, and they want to make it theirs because they love Bond or they love Venom. And I think that the more that, this space can allow for like DIY stuff, the better. So I'd love to see just like maybe just a little piece of information kind of opened up and embraced, some of the companies are already doing it.
Or lamps, switches and lamps. If we could get a data feed of switches and lamps that are going on in the playfield, that would make the hugest difference to what we, the board that you've put so much work and effort and R&D into and stuff, which is amazing. But, there's still an element of it, still, it's a hack, just like everything I do is a hack.
Yeah, I mean, when the sticky foam gets unstuck, like the UFO doesn't go up, and it's because the sticky foam came unstuck.
Yeah, so we just use stickier foam. It's totally fine. But look, I mean, a couple of people, might be aware of, the fact that we were looking at hacking the Node protocol a little while, and we did. We managed to pull out switches and lamps from the Node protocol, but it soon became very apparent that it was, again, a fool's errand, because all Stern needs to do is change that protocol, and suddenly all the mods stop working. So as cool as that hack was, and as good as it made us feel, it was completely and utterly useless unless Stern are on board with us doing it. So for one thing that happened, I was a part of like very early iPhone days, and from anything to chargers to like whatever, what they ended up doing was this thing called MFI, and it's called Made for iPhone. It was basically like a little chip that you have to put into any piece of hardware that you're selling, and it's basically like a fancy hologram, like licensed, right? But basically it allows for you to talk to the protocol. And it's not like you're buying necessarily an official Apple product, but they were able to basically
sell this $5 chip to anybody who was selling a charger. And that's one reason even like aftermarket chargers costed what they cost, is because I have to pay this licensing fee. Yeah. And I'd love to see just some kind of like, again, like Stern doesn't have to say my product's official, but they could certainly let me know the lights and the switches and make a little bit of money off of me and ultimately the customers. So,
and I would be so open to that, you know, and because I mean, ultimately, you know, the amount of cabling, circuit boards, technology and stuff that we have to build into every mod at the moment would more than cover, you know, that licensing cost if they chose to open up that protocol and sell us a chip. You know, if it's a 5 or 10 or whatever it is, you know, I would be more than happy with that as a solution. And I think the scene would benefit from it.
Well, I mean, the customer is the one kind of paying the price to a certain degree because the installations take longer, they're less consistent, and mistakes can be made. I mean, a lot of the issues we have with our product is just like, you know, people interpret instructions in different ways, and it's like a lot of it comes down to just like how you interpret, you know, how to do a thing. And then some people think they know what they're doing, so they end up going a different path, and it creates all sorts of stuff. So it's pretty simple stuff.
Everybody likes reading instructions, you know. Some people like watching videos, some people like reading documentation. The less steps you can have, you know, with that system. I mean, wouldn't it be great if it, you know, was something as simple as like unplugging one of the, you know, RJ45 cables from a node board, sticking it into yours, reconnecting the loop, and then that's the whole installation from, you know, from a technical point of view. You know, I mean, it's a dream. Whether it ever happens, you know, I would love for that to happen. And, you know, who knows, man? Maybe we'll, you know, get in the boardroom one time with Stern and, you know, put forward our case.
Well, nonetheless, kudos to Stern for continuing to push, you know, technology and their products with Insider Connected. You know, there's so much more to come there, and we can all make it better together.
It's happy pinball world.
Yes. Well, guys, we're running over, but thank you so much for joining us on the 5th episode. Next episode, we're going to talk about some new mods, because I know, Dave, you've got some stuff you've seen out there. Yeah. I'm sure we're going to be talking about Jaws. No Twippies. I think we're done with the Twippies for a little bit. We'll be talking about it again soon. But thank you to Escher for joining us. Thank you to our audience. Happy New Year. And we've got, if we do it right, 26 more of these this year. So let's keep it up.
Let's do it, man. Looking forward to it.
All right.
Happy 24, everyone.
Take care. Take care, everybody.
Bye.